Hello there. Welcome to the booth here at the World Magic Cup. Randy Buehler, Ben Stark, Marshall Sutcliffe, and we are ready to watch the Netherlands versus Denmark in our first of what is going to be 3 very exciting matches. Hello and welcome to coverage of the World Magic Cup. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with 2 Hall of Famers, Randy Buehler and Ben Stark. And we are just about underway here in the feature match area with the Netherlands. You take a look at Frank Karsten of the Netherlands versus Denmark, his opponent Martin Müller. And we are just about underway here. Looks like players can start. Randy, what are we looking at as far as this matchup goes?
I am staring at the Netherlands decks, and you can just see Frank Karsten's fingerprints all over them. They've got an Abzan deck, and a Mardu deck, and a Teamer deck. And now if you think about it, that's 3 different mid-range decks, all of which overlap. So they split cards everywhere. The Thoughtseizes are split, the Lightning Strikes are split, even the Elvish Mystics are split across these decks. Wow, that is not the way most people attack this format. Most people have like a blue-white heroic deck or like a red-white deck. It's really interesting the way Frank put these together. All
right, well, it looks like he started off with a pretty nice one here with a Fleecemane Lion to kick things off, though it's going to get struck down by lightning from Martin Müller, and he's going to pass the turn back to Karsten. What's the follow-up play here for Frank? Well, he's got a Windswept Heath, so he can play a 3-mana spell here. What is it going to be?
Probably
maybe
a Courser if he
yeah.
if he just fetched second forest.
That's what I was thinking too.
I mean, he's not necessarily going to have to play it this turn. You get the second forest even if you're going to play it next turn. I don't know if he has other 3-drops. I'm not, you know.
Yeah, these are Team Unified standard deck lists, so they're not quite the same as what you'd see in a normal standard, though they're very similar, and it is a Courser, and it reveals the best friend of every Abzan player.
Siege Rhino is awesome. That card, when we first saw it, as soon as the pre-release happened, you were just like, wow, you know, there's going to be an Abzan deck. There's going to be a mid-range green deck around this card.
And it has certainly lived up to the hype. I've heard a few players call it the best card in standard here over the course of the tournament. And Martin Müller, his play, not too bad. Hordling Outburst, one that maybe wasn't super high on people's radar, but has actually seen a fair bit of standard play already.
Yeah, I think that's because of the Jeskai deck that Team Channel Fireball played at Pro Tour Cons. It's built on spot removal and a few dudes, and it's not great at killing small creatures. It doesn't have any sweepers or anything like that, so if you want to remove those tokens, you pretty much have to use spot removal on each token individually.
Right, and that's a pretty tall order. Now, Frank finds an Unoffensive the Foremost on top of his library after drawing his Siege Rhino for the turn, and it looks like he's lining up a draw. It looks like he's actually considering attacking Ben. Is he thinking about representing an Abzan Charm here or something?
Yeah, it might be.
What's his thought process here?
Yeah, it might be kind of a free roll attack for him. If he's going to play the Siege Rhino post-combat, then he doesn't need to have the Courser back. So I think he just, attacks. If it gets chumped, it kills a guy. If not, it does 2 damage, and then he's got the Siege Rhino back to block.
Yeah, so it's just a free attack, so he doesn't even need to represent anything there to get in for 2. He does, and make that 5 on the turn thanks to Siege Rhino, and he passes the turn back. So right now, Frank Karsten kind of outclassing what Müller's up to, although a Crackling Doom is pretty nice, as it's going to kill the Siege Rhino and let him get in for 3, and then the additional 2 damage from the Crackling Doom. So 5 points right back at you, Frank Karsten, as he draws Unoffensive and finds another one sitting on top of his library.
Yeah, it's an interesting line from Müller there, who could have played Butcher of the Horde, but elected for Crackling Doom in the attack. He just wants to keep Karsten's board low rather than developing his own.
All right, so Frank's going to play a land, gain a life from the Courser, crack in there for 2. He is ahead in the damage race currently. And here's Unoffensive the Foremost. So right back up to 6 power on the battlefield here for Frank Karsten, and virtually 7 on the attack as well. So he is remaining assertive. We do see that Frank's deck seems to skew a little bit towards the lower end. We saw the Fleecemane Lion from him early in the game too.
Yeah, it's still a mid-range deck. It's not all the way to aggro, but it definitely has the more aggressive creature set.
He doesn't have any Rakasha Death Dealers or anything like that? Yeah, that's usually the marker for the aggro deck.
Right. Yeah, no, he's still a Courser Caryatid deck. He's no Air of the Wilds, no one-drops, but does have the Fleece mains, does have the Anafenses in the main.
I like that. Those are both such strong cards. Unless you want to go way over the top, like with Ari's Planeswalker version that he won the Pro Tour with, I think if you're going to play a more mid-range version, I think you use Fleece Mane and Anafenza.
Speaking of over the top.
Yeah, here's over the top indeed. Sarkon, the Dragon Speaker, comes down. And
he goes down. He wants to kill Anafenza.
Is he going to kill Anafenza or is he going to kill Courser? Because with another Anafenza sitting on top of the library for Karsten, it's pretty aggressive here to actually just take out the blocker.
No, he'll almost certainly take out Courser.
Yeah.
This game's not ending anytime soon.
Right.
So, I mean, you want to take away that advantage of being able to put the lands into play off the top of your library and draw almost all spells for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I think that Frank is fetching in response because he already targeted the Courser. Yep. He wants to gain an extra life. And also, he didn't want that second copy of Anafenza sitting on top of his library, so he gets to shuffle that away, too.
Yeah, I like that play.
Seems like a decent sequence here, actually, for both players, kind of. Getting that Courser off the battlefield is nice for Martin. And Frank's getting some value here as well. And he finds a Windswept Heath on top. And down goes the Courser. No attack, of course, for Mulla. He just has to pass the turn back. But now he gets to hide behind 3 tokens and maybe start bashing with Sarkon.
Well, Anafenza's probably going to attack Sarkon because there's no reason not to make Martin throw away a token to keep it alive. Of course, you'd much rather kill Sarkon, but that's not really an option. And then I think what we'll see from Martin will be the Butcher, finally.
Now, how aggressive does Martin get here, Ben? Does he butcher sack a creature, or are those creatures too important at protecting Sarkon?
I wouldn't sack one with a Sarkon out. The way I see it, if he's hitting with the Sarkon and he's got a Butcher out, that's 2 decent threats that Frank has to deal with. Okay, well, I guess we're going to see a different line by him.
Yeah, let's take a look at his hand here and see what Muller's working with. He's got another Hordling Outburst.
Okay, so. Well, there's nothing wrong with this play.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's better or worse. Pretty close. Now he kind of goes wide, which makes it tough for Frank to be able to stabilize. But if Frank has a Bioblight, he might be able to catch back up now because he can Bioblight the Goblin and then kill the Sarkon with the Anafenza. So that's why I didn't like this line. I like the play a Butcher line. But Frank doesn't have a Bioblight, so it worked out.
Sure. So Frank forces Martin to chump block with the token to keep his Sarkon alive, and follows up with a reasonable play here in Fleet's main line. He's now considering if he wants to monstrous at main phase here. He would have to take a life hit to do it, but he's got to figure he's probably doing that anyway at some point.
Well, he can use the Windswept for black mana. That's kind of nifty.
Wow.
Because he has an Urborg out.
Oh, sure, so he doesn't even need to take
So he doesn't need to take one, but he wouldn't just randomly do it there because with the 2 mana open, it could get Lightning Struck in response. Even though you can't really stop Martin from Lightning Striking it, you pass a turn, and then at least you end up doing it on his turn, and he has to use the mana then.
Right, so now bang, 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 and that is 5, 9, 10, 11, 12, and thanks to the Lightning Strike that took Carson down to 10 on end step, that is going to do it for Game 1. Martin Mulla of Denmark defeats Frank Karsten. We'll be back right after these messages.
Play like the pros by jumping into a Vintage Masters draft right now. Vintage Masters draft is available until December 10th. Join the fun by downloading Magic Online at www.mtgo.com. Friday Night Magic expands to all formats starting in 2015. Get ready for Commander, Legacy, or even Conspiracy drafts at Friday Night Magic. Check out your local store for details, and remember to tell your friends Friday night is about to get even better. Visit magic.wizards.com/FNM for more information.
Back in our feature match here at the World Magic Cup, these players have made it to this last stretch before the cut. They've got to play 3 matches today, and we're going to jump in on our middle table. That's table B, where we see Iso Bean playing against Thomas Envoldsen.
Yeah, the Danes have a blue-black control deck in their mix, which I think should be a good matchup for them because all the Dutch decks are mid-range. So you get the blue-black against a mid-range. It's pretty reasonable. We actually heard earlier that Ashiok had been going at it for a while. I think that's why you see a large stack of cards over on the side. managed to turn 4 Polukranos, did Ashiok. This is still that same game, though, right? This is still game 1?
This is game 1. So both players at 17. We see the Perilous Vault being perilous indeed.
Yeah, apparently turn 4 Polukranos was not good enough for the blue-black control deck.
That's not a sentence I thought you'd say this weekend, Randy.
I guess Crater's Claws had a little something to say about that.
All right. So is it time right now to fire off the Perilous Vault? He's got a lot of life total to work with.
Oh, do you see what's hiding in his hand?
I saw he has Aether Spouts.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, he's just kind of got it all. That would have been an interesting decision between take the 5 and Jace's Ingenuity or Perilous Vault. But when you have Aether Spouts, just put them right back on top.
Or bottom.
Or bottom.
You got to figure the Elf's going to hit the bottom.
Right.
Now, the Boon Satyr is a different one. That's a quality spell. It probably would be better than your average draw step, so he's going to go ahead and put that back on top. Now, he does get to reload here, second main phase. The Perilous Vault just sits there looming over every board state it's in, and it just warps everything.
Yeah, this is a really good situation for the blue-black control player. You're still at 17, and you're only facing 1 threat, and your Perilous Vault's already on the table. It's kind of exactly how they hope it goes.
This is how they drew it up. Somewhere Andrew Cuneo is at home fist pumping. As I saw him do this at the Pro Tour multiple times with this type of deck.
Do you think Cuneo has a fist pump in his repertoire?
No, I don't.
This is kind of a tough decision for him because he can't really do 2 things yet. So he has to decide which thing he wants to do. And if he decides on Jace's Ingenuity, he might do that main phase. So he's got a lot of options to consider. I think he'll probably just pass the turn and Hero's Downfall Polukranos.
Yeah, this is the thing about that Perilous Vault that gets kind of cool is that they try to play around it by playing 1 threat at a time, and then you just kill that threat and reload with card draw spells like Jace's Ingenuity.
Do you like the Downfall better than blowing the Vault?
Yeah, because the Vault has the ability to exile things like Ash Cloud Phoenix. He could definitely just do nothing here because he has Jason's Ingenuity.
Right.
I definitely wouldn't blow the Vault right now, though. My choice would be between Hero's Downfall, which uses less mana, so could definitely be worse, or just take the 5 and then Jason's Ingenuity end a turn. I mean, obviously, if he dumped his hand into play, then you would Vault end a turn, but that seems unlikely, to happen.
Wow, he actually did decide to fire off the Perilous Vault. Now, I think part of the reason for that is that he's got a second copy in his hand. But interesting play there.
Yeah.
It's also true that Jace's Ingenuity plus Hero's Downfall is a pretty nice turn, and he was 1 mana away from being able to do both of those on the same turn.
Yeah. I really don't like blowing that Perilous Vault there, like I said. I mean, he could take the 5 and then end a turn Jace's Ingenuity, and then he's got the Perilous Vault, which, means that his opponent can't play the Boon Satyr because he can just Vault it all away. So then he gets a clear board. He can Vault during the next turn, and then he's already Jace's Ingenuity. He's still got the Hero's Downfall up to keep the board clear, or dissolves if he drew into them. Right. I think that's a much better play.
All right, so right now, yeah, this Ash Cloud Phoenix gets to jump in for a little bit of damage, but we're going to jump back over to Frank Carson versus Martin Miller. I want to see how this game ends. We're going to keep an eye, of course, on all of our matches, and we'll keep you as up-to-date as possible of what's going on, especially in our feature match area here. And there's a Sylvan Caryatid for Frank Carson to start things off. Temple of Malady is going to get a scry effect for Karsten.
I take 2 damage from my lens, 2 towers, and 2 other triggers.
And he has an On-Offensive the Foremost here on turn 3. So reasonable pressure, and this kind of mirrors what we saw last game in some ways. We see now a Hordling Outburst for Martin Miller, and players are just sort of developing as normal. The question starts coming in over the next few turns. Here comes On-Offensive, crashing into the red zone and getting in there for 4.
Since it's not that slow a version, I think I like this matchup for Frank.
I think we're going to see a Wingmate Rock here, gentlemen. There it is, and that does have the raid trigger. So a pair of rocks joins the battlefield, and all of a sudden Martin Miller finds himself with 3 lowly 1/1 tokens, facing down 10 power and what will probably be 11 power by the time it's actually attacking. There's a Stoke the Flame, so that can help mitigate some of this by killing one of the threats. But does Martin Muller just have to go into control mode here where he just tries to pick off threat after threat?
Yeah, it looks like he's got a Sarkin in hand. So if he can take out one of the wingmates now with the Stoke, if he finds a land, and even if he doesn't, he's got a Crackling Doom, I guess, for the Anafenza. So basically, he has the removal to kill the threats. He has Sarkin, Stoke to Flames, and Crackling Doom, and he's facing 3 threats that he needs to deal with.
All right.
So I think he's fine.
I think Mardu generally can kill all the major threats that Abzan puts out.
I think so, too. Yeah, Crackling Doom really helps shore up a lot of the awkward stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, it's particularly good against Blue-White Heroic, but I mean, it's good enough in this matchup that you started to see Mardu have success once the metagame became all Abzan.
All right. So it looks like he decided to go Crackling Doom and then use my tokens to Stoke as well. So he's left Frank Karsten with just the 1/3/4 Flying Rock. And interestingly, Mulla has Stormbreath Dragon in hand, which also has protection from that creature. So he's actually in a pretty decent spot, assuming Frank doesn't just snap off another Wingmate Rock here or something like that.
Did you see Frank's hand?
I did not. You can look at it.
I think it was mostly land. He might have a removal.
You're right. He's got a Hero's Downfall and not much else. So this may have swung back in Martin's direction here, even after a really great start from Karsten.
It's one of the problems with these Abzan decks. They tend to be a little bit threat light, so if they're 2 to 3 good threats they draw get dealt with, then they're mostly lands and caryatids.
Right. All right, so that's a Rabble Master, which is going to get immediately Hero's Downfall. And because Martin Milla, unfortunately for him, did not find his 5th mana there, at least an untapped mana source, he did find a Temple of Triumph, but can't cast those 2 5-drops he's got in his hand. He'll have to settle for a pretty nice one there, though. Okay, Rock token in.
I don't think he's that upset about trading the Rabble Master for Hero's Downfall and clearing a path for Stormbreath.
Agree.
Yeah, and if Frank didn't draw a threat this turn, Martin's going to have a huge turn because he's able to play the Sarkin, killing the Wingmate Rock token, and then there's nothing out to attack the Sarkin back.
And that's exactly what happened here. Frank Karsten sitting on a pair of Windswept Heaths. Not a lot going on for Frank. And there's that Sarkin you just mentioned, Ben. Takes down the Wingmate Rock token. Remember, Mulla won the first game here. And he's looking to get a really quick match win for Denmark if he can finish off this game. All right, but Siege Rhino might have something to say about that. Though he's still not in a great spot, is he, Ben?
Frank's back is definitely to the wall. He could win this game, but we know that he has to beat not only that Sarkin plus a Stormbreath. So he's going to have to draw a removal spell, maybe be able to clear the way for Siege Rhino since it has Trample, and deal with that Stormbreath.
That's a lot to ask
all he's
for.
really got to deal with is 6 points of life.
That is true. Martin
Yeah.
Mulla's
I mean,
at
Stormbreath
6.
is capable of getting in the way, but what are you going to go Stormbreath not attack?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that this is going to be a defensive Stormbreath to protect the
Protection
Sarkin.
from white to hold off the 4 points of trample damage from Siege Rhino?
Yeah, that's why I think he needs to draw a removal to deal with the Stormbreath, which not a lot does.
Hero's Downfall.
Hero's
being
Downfall, which he's used 1 copy of. Bioblight will allow him to kill the Sarkin, but it won't. The Stormbreath will still be there for next turn. And Abzan Charm can't target the Stormbreath, obviously, because of the protection from white.
Right. So passes the turn back with the Stormbreath up as we have described here. And let's see if we can figure out Carson drew Thoughtseize for the turn, not what he had in mind. 1 turn too late, and you can see on Frank Carson's face that he knows that he's in deep trouble here.
I think I would cast the Thoughtseize. You know he has spells in hand, and this doesn't leave you dead on board or anything like that.
He sees Rabble Master Hordling Outburst.
Pretty rough spot for Frank. Those are both cards you didn't want to see at this point. But considering he's dead to a land, I guess it's better than seeing a land. I think he'll probably take the Rabble, no, the Outburst, I guess. No, I don't. He's in really bad shape now.
But he knows it. Yeah, that's about as anguished as Frank Carson gets right there.
Does the 1/1 haste from the Rabble Master make it lethal? I don't think so because of the Carotid. It's 2, 8, 10, and Frank's at 11. Yeah, so this is a close call.
So land is monstrous for Stormbreath Dragon, and therefore lethal. 7 plus Sarkhan's 4 is 11.
Right, and on board it's 9. With the hasted 1/1 from the Rabblemaster, it's 10.
Right, but so this spot is so bad that Karsten starts out saying, all right, my opponent needs to never draw land again. Right?
Yeah.
That's the start of the hypothetical where he wins the game, is your opponent's drawing a spell every turn.
Right.
Until I deal with Stormbreath anyway.
And Martin finds the land. Yeah. It's untapped. He activates Stormbreath Dragon. Monstrous ability goes on. Frank Karsten takes the damage. And in comes the team. And Martin Muller wins his match for against Frank Karsten. And Denmark is up 1. Thomas Hendricks, though, has won his match already for the Netherlands, meaning that we're going to get a deciding match.
You know what? That's another Mardu deck. Mardu is 2-0 in this match.
Mardu's a great deck.
Yeah, Team Mardu. Yeah, very similar Mardu list to the one we just watched win. Are they still in game 1 on table B?
That is correct, Randy. We are on table 1, game 1 on table B. Iso Bean versus Tomas Enevoldsen, and these are the fun ones to just pop in on, you know.
Well, when the blue-black deck has complete control like he did when we left this game, you know that the game doesn't necessarily end quickly.
Exactly. There's the graveyards. That big pile of cards is the sort of chaff from Ashiok sitting there. All right, and there is an Ash Cloud Phoenix, but Iso's at 2? So, I mean, I'm not sure how Tomas finds a way to finish him, but he will.
It sounds like we're up to Ashiok number 3 in this matchup.
Wow. Ashiok putting in work.
That's how you draw it up with Temur, right? You have lots of removal so that you can kill your own creatures after Ashiok steals them.
Not sure if that was plan A, but...
Thomas has a great removal in hand. He's about to play a Silence the Believers, taking out both creatures.
Geez, with the Strive.
And I'm assuming they're both? No, one of them's a Rattleclaw Mystic. But they're both exiled. And he gets to tick down. No red mana available to get Savage Knuckleblade haste. Yeah, I know. We're all a little sad about it. But Crater's Claws. Now, this is what's been happening, is that Tomas has been playing creatures off of Ashiok that weren't originally his, and Izo's been killing them over and over and over with his own removal spells.
It's good that he made sure to do it for 6, because he could have pumped the Knuckleblade with that Opulent Palace.
Oh, nice. The one that's in there just as an extra blue-black dual land.
Yeah.
Right? And meanwhile, Ashiok Nightmare Weaver still just putting in great work here. Tick-tock, 1. Okay. Boon Satyr. And there's an answer for that, too, in the form of Bile Blight. And, I mean, we're going through the motions here, right? Like, Tomas, is there a way he goes from 11 to 0 here?
2 burn spells.
2 burn spells that do 11, like 2 Crater's Claws?
Yeah. Izo just chose to Crater's Claws away the Ashiok. I guess he's just really trying to outdraw him down the stretch. The Ashiok would have probably put creatures into play, and with Izo at 2, he has to protect his life. Usually, you know, life's a pretty expendable resource against blue-black control. You're just trying to attack them, but, you know, he's really, you know, he's the one on the back foot here.
So this kind of has to be a Rattleclaw Mystic, right? Since
yes.
Izo can't turn up an Ash Cloud Phoenix right now?
Yes, and an Ash Cloud Phoenix, it would be important to play it face up, because if it gets killed, it still goes down.
Yeah.
You don't lose the two life or anything.
So he's just basically played it as extra toughness, since Rattleclaw Mystic making mana at this point isn't super relevant.
And it makes a bonus mana the turn you unmorph it, which could be relevant with Crater's Claws.
Sure. Meanwhile, Tomas has Murderous Cut, all types of stuff.
It's not maybe the biggest decision, but a close, interesting decision for Izo is whether or not he sacrifices the Wooded Foothills. He's at 2, so, I mean, he would go to 1, which is precarious, but I don't know that there's anything that does 1 and not 2 out of blue-black. Maybe if he steals an Elvish Mystic with an Ashiok or something like that. And you don't want to draw lands at this point, and it's not that big a library. So I could definitely see sacking it for the thin-out effect at this point.
Tomas is down to 9.
0 creatures in Tomas's deck, by the way.
I like that.
Yeah, he jumped the
found a
Ashiok.
Despise here, which I'm assuming is not going to hit, but it might. It did hit something. It's gone. I couldn't quite see what the card was, but it looks like he was holding on. It was a Storm Breath Dragon.
Well, with the Perilous Fault in play,
Yeah.
he couldn't put the 3rd creature in play.
And speaking of Perilous Fault, away it goes, knocking out these 2 creatures.
This game felt pretty close, but Thomas drew Dissolve, and I think he had a Hero's Downfall. So he now has, Ashiok with a counter spell to protect his life total from burn and a removal spell. So he's starting to sit pretty comfortable.
Okay, looks like he found maybe a Boon Satyr down there. A lethal Boon Satyr, and I think he has 2 Dissolves now. No, he's still waiting.
I think he's just trying to deck him now.
Okay, he's only got 3 cards left. Yeah, you're right. He can just protect Ashiok and not mess around with the whole deal. And yeah, Tomas Enevoldsen picks up game 1. Now, the situation we're in here is this is match 1 of 3 that the players are going to play in Team Unified Standard to decide who makes it to the final day. And since 2 matches have already finished, this is actually just the match that is going to decide which one of these teams picks up that critical first win in the pod, Randy.
Absolutely. It's even more critical for Denmark as well. The Dutch at least have the edge on tiebreakers. They came in as the top seed in this pool for stage 2, so the loss is not fatal for them. But you're looking at the 4 seed as Denmark. You really need to 3-0. The only way to control your own destiny is to rattle off all 3 wins. 2-1 probably good enough, but if there's a 2-1, 2-1, 2-1, 0-3 pool, which is very realistic, you're going to lose the tiebreaker to the other 2-1 teams.
Right. So can you break it down a little bit bigger picture for us, Randy, here as far as how this pool thing works out? Because this isn't something we normally use for Magic.
Right. At this point in the tournament, there are 16 teams left. They're divided up into 4 pools of 4 teams each. What we're going to see this afternoon is inside each of those pools, they play round robin. So you already know all 3 of your opponents for this afternoon that you're going to play in Unified Standard. 3 rounds, finishes out the round robin, and now you just look and say, okay, who won the group? They get to go to Sunday. Who finished second in the group? They get to go to Sunday. The other 8 teams are done.
They're done. So half of the teams remaining in the field are going to make it to the top 8, and they're going to get to come back to play tomorrow to try to become World Magic Cup champions.
Yeah, and then tomorrow is just your normal single elimination bracket amongst the 8 of them.
So every single game win counts. And right now, Denmark needs 1 more
Yeah, these
to
are
keep their hope alive.
huge games. Every decision. I mean, and it's not just you playing for you either. You factor in the national pride. You factor in the teammates that are counting on you. These are definitely very high pressure moments for these guys.
Yeah, you get the teammates kind of hovering over you too, which adds an extra layer of pressure perhaps. And I've had a chance to chat with a lot of the players doing interviews and stuff for the news desk this week. And, I've asked a bunch of them about what it's like to play for their country. And it's top of their list almost across the board. I mean, everybody's just like, it's a huge deal. I know people are watching at home. I'm so proud to be here. I've got the flag sitting next to me on the table, which you can see right there. And it definitely adds some really cool layers to what's already, something that's pretty great, a Magic tournament.
In Magic, I've gotten to do a lot of great things, winning the Pro Tour and a Grand Prix, but I've never gotten to play on the U.S. national team. And I've tried a lot of times, and it's something that I've always wanted. I got a little close a couple years ago. I was actually the top American in pro points going to Pro Tour Dragon's Maze, and then Josh Layton put up the top 4 and ended up earning the slot. And I can remember feeling like really disappointed, really happy for Josh, but really disappointed that I didn't end up getting the spot. I didn't actually end up getting that close because Martel and Eric Froelich also top 16 that Pro Tour and passed me, and I did badly in it. But nonetheless, I remember feeling very disappointed that I wasn't going to get to play on the national team when I thought I had a really good shot since I was top American going into the last tournament.
I wouldn't be surprised to see you on that team at some point, Ben.
Oh, I appreciate that, but it's a tough feat in the United States.
It is very tough.
I mean, you either have to win one of the 3
What is Frank doing?
World Magic Cup qualifiers, or you have to have a lot of pro points. Owen Turtenwald took the slot this time, and I think he had something like 71 pro points last year.
Yeah.
71.
To get to get the pro points out of the American team, you basically need to win Player of the Year.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Okay, I see
At
a
least
mulligan
maybe
here.
second.
Here's a mulligan.
The year I was talking about missing, I had 62 or something. It's a very tough feat.
Okay, and I'm pretty sure that Denmark has now kept.
Izo Bean's the one who's kind of up against it on the Dutch side here. He's got about 25 minutes left in this round, and he needs to win 2.
So let's see if he can do it. Iso is playing Teamer mid-range. Tomas is playing blue-black control.
I know who Kibler's rooting for.
I do too.
Yeah, Izo should be the one who benefits from sideboarding. He gets to take out the creature removal spells that don't really do anything in the matchup. Although, I guess for the only reasons he survived long enough to get decked that time around.
Yeah, and Crater's Claws is still pretty good in the matchup since the games often go long. So I assume he's mostly only taking out Lightning Strikes.
And you know what? They split the Lightning Strike, so he's only got 2 of them anyway.
What does his sideboard look like? I wonder what he could have brought in.
Well, Magma Spray's not for this matchup. Stubborn Denial, I don't know how good Stubborn Denial is in this matchup.
Probably pretty good.
I mean, how do you have the 4-power creature to actually trigger the Ferocious all that often?
Not always, but if you can get a spell in the early turns, it's
just an early Force Spike is pretty good. Destructive Revelry can get Perilous Vault. That's, I would think, what that card is there for. 3 Teamer Charms, a Reclamation Sage, also good against the Vault, and a Storm Breath Dragon.
Okay, so some okay stuff, some upgrades basically. Not really anti-blue-black cards, but maybe some small upgrades.
His deck actually has fewer dead cards than you would expect for the matchup, but his sideboard doesn't have anything super specific anyway, so.
So he might not have done a whole lot of sideboarding here.
That's how I read it. I think he'll have answers. He'll have the ways to blow up the Perilous Vault.
Yeah, makes sense.
Hopefully he does. He's down to 5 cards here.
Oh, jeez.
Is Iso, and he has kept 5, so we're underway in the feature match area. Netherlands versus Denmark. This is the first match of pod play here in the last section of the tournament before we cut to the top 8. And Denmark really needs to win this. They want a 3-0 to put themselves in the lock position to make it into the top 8. Netherlands doesn't. They don't have to.
Yeah, they know that a 2-1 will definitely be good enough because of their seed.
But it's not that easy to win 2 straight matches.
It is not at all.
Sure, they would prefer to win.
Yeah, no, but I don't just say that. Like when somebody's 9-1 and they take a loss in the Pro Tour and they still have 2 more losses to give for top 8. Of course, you'd always rather win, but they're still really comfortable.
Yep.
But needing to 2-0 is not that comfortable. Sure. Needing to 2-0 is still your back sort of to the wall.
For sure, anything can happen, including what we're seeing here.
Oh, man.
And here comes Heir of the Wilds crashing in. It looks like Heir of the Wilds is going to get in for a little bit of damage here, but
that's it, though.
That is not a long-term game plan for Iso.
Yeah, that Stubborn Denial has already been Thoughtseized. He's got 2 Yavimaya Coast in his hand. Period, the end.
Starting down cards against the blue-black control with all this attrition and just looking to make the games go long. It's not a good spot to be in.
Now, this is a terrible spot for the Netherlands. He has found yet another land. At least this one lets him dig and push presumably another land to the bottom. And Tomas says, well, if that's all you got, all heroes downfall, your 2-drop. And he's just going to pass a turn back. So it could be worse there for Iso.
You really need to get ahead and pressure this blue-black control deck.
Yeah, he has had no pressure here outside of that Heir of the Wilds. Now, good news / bad news for the Netherlands. Tomas passes a turn back without playing a land, which means he's missing land drops. It also means his hand is all spells. He has 6 spells in hand right now. Yikes.
Cannot dig yet. Would love to get to 5 for Jace's Ingenuity.
Disdainful Stroke says no to Ash Cloud Phoenix, which is a problem permanent. That thing can be a pain to deal with, so he wastes no time there. There's that 5th land. It does enter the battlefield. Tap Temple of Deceit. He's also going to Thoughtseize just to clear the way here, but it's just that Yavimaya Coast.
Didn't you know about that Yavimaya Coast? Oh, no, it's the 3rd Yavimaya Coast.
It is.
Funny.
What I am wondering about, it looked like he had that Thoughtseize in his hand on the last turn.
And he didn't use it.
He knew the hand.
He knew the whole hand?
He knew the whole hand was 2. He saw those 2 Yavimaya Coasts early.
Well, so he drew and played Ash Cloud Phoenix last turn, then he knew about that Yavimaya Coast.
No, he played the Yavimaya Coast. He drew a 3rd Yavimaya Coast.
Okay, he drew a 3rd Yavimaya Coast, you're right, yeah. So it's tricky.
Okay,
Prognostic Sphinx in from the sideboard.
Yeah, here it is, Prognostic Sphinx. Super good blocker, Tomas. Nice and stable here at 12. But there's a Polukranos. Okay, so things are moving forward a bit here for Iso.
Get a downfall for it, right?
Yes, he does. He just drew it.
They're trying to figure out whether they want to dig first.
Probably makes sense to fetch before you start doing all the scrying and digging.
Right. Well, they look comfortable over there on the Netherlands side,
Wow.
but they may be...
That was the shrug and the smile of, well, you didn't do anything wrong. Things just happened.
Yeah. And, you know, it's always disappointing to lose, but you can't beat yourself up about those games. Personally, you know, I do get a little bit upset with myself when I blow a game in a big moment, but sometimes the cards just aren't there.
Right, and that might be the case here for the Netherlands. They have put together a little bit of an offensive with the Polukranos, but I don't believe that the World Eater is long for this particular world.
Okay, so Phoenix maybe.
What else actually?
The Phoenix might have cost one.
And the Denmark team going over their options.
You're a 19 or 18?
One off for your fetch land instead of one off your
Yeah,
That would matter.
It looks like they're...
You can pay green. Well, you should.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it looks like they're figuring something out, because I'm pretty sure this turn is just going to be Hero's Downfall, the Polukranos, and attack.
I think you're right, Ben. Yeah, there it is. All right, it was a life total situation, and it looks like he gets to dig through time as well.
He's going to do that before he gets the 3 scries.
Right.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense.
I mean, if you're in the Netherlands seat, seeing him resolve a dig through time here just has to be completely disheartening.
Yeah. You
I don't know. I think they gave up on the game a couple of turns ago.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think at this point they're thinking about the next games. And
Yeah, I do see an inordinate number of smiles on the other side there for...
I believe they are resigned to their fate. Make a good point, though. The Dutch team do look happier than most teams would be losing here.
Yeah.
Well, as you guys mentioned, they're not eliminated. They just need to win 2 straight, and they should make... Well, if they win 2 straight, they will make it through.
Yeah, there's an outside chance they can go 1-2 and still advance.
Right. That would require, what, the 3-0, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2 scenario?
Precisely.
I love block
Happens.
play.
It happened, I think, twice in the first set of 8.
Sure.
At least once, and I think twice.
It could definitely happen, because if you're already assuming they're 1-2 for it to matter, then you're just talking about a specific breakdown of 3-0, 1-2, 1-2 compared to, say, 2-1, 2-1, 1-2.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, another attack with Prognostic Sphinx keeps the goodness flowing on the top of the deck for Enveldson as he chips away at Iso's life total.
You sure you want to put those lands on the bottom? Aren't lands good here?
Okay, Fina.
As you mentioned before, I don't think it matters much what he puts on the bottom.
Yeah, he
There's
did put a swamp on top.
Divination. Card that has seen standard play, though, not recently.
Well, I mean, he didn't get all the Thoughtseizes he wanted. Oh, actually, that was the Dutch that split the Thoughtseizes. I don't know what the Danes did.
I found the choosing the 3 different Team Unified standard decks to be pretty interesting. We talked a lot about the Dutch. What was Denmark's split?
They went blue-black, and they haven't. Their Obzon deck is kind of an Obzon whip deck, and then the other deck is Mardu.
mid-range, yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I saw Shahar Shenhar was playing an Obzon whip deck also.
He's playing Obzon whip or Sidisi whip.
Obzon whip.
Interesting.
Yeah, I remember when we watched them, I noted that he was like a green-black, you know, similar to what PGO ran, but then he had Siege Rhino in it, along with, you know, Hornet Queen and Whip and, you know, Satar Wayfinder and a lot of the standard characters for these whip decks. I hadn't really seen that on Magic Online previously or anything like that.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of the mid-range decks, you wind up playing against so many mid-range decks. You need some cards that can just be trumps in the late game.
Yeah, and I had seen Whip in Obzon. Willie ran that back at Pro Tour Cons of Tarkir, but I hadn't seen Siege Rhino in like the Whip deck in the Satar Wayfinder Hornet Queen deck.
Oh, sure.
That was something completely new to me.
Got it.
Yeah, that deck has popped up here and there. It made an appearance at the TCG Player 50K. You know, it's been sort of hiding in the shadows.
And it makes a lot of sense because, you know, the core of that deck is obviously the black-green, as PGO chose to eschew the blue in Worlds anyway. And Siege Rhino is a great card, so, you know, you can only go so wrong putting those in the deck.
Meanwhile, Tomas managed to deal with every threat that Iso has been able to put out, including that last Boon Satyr, and with a grip of 6 cards in hand for Enevoldsen, it's hard to imagine that Prognostic Sphinx is ever going to die. All right, so, well, here's a Savage Knuckleblade, though, for Iso. In response, Dig Through Time from Enevoldsen, who finds immediately 2 copies of Dissolve, which is, I'm sure, one of the cards he's searching for here.
Yeah, pretty much exactly what he wants to see when he's ahead and in a comfortable position with a Sphinx out.
Yeah. Could get Stubborn denied here. No, they don't have it. And the board stays clear outside of Prognostic Sphinx, which once again is doing the whole Scry 3, draw nothing but awesome stuff for the rest of the game thing. And yeah, you have every right to smile, Tomas. You're in a great position and about to seal the deal in the first round. And there is the hand. So Denmark defeats the Netherlands here in the first round of this last pod, and puts themselves in a spot where they can back-to-back and get in.
Yeah, no, we allowed to be rooting for 4 seeds to just beat 1 seeds across the board? We allowed to root for the home team?
You are.
All right.
I allow this.
It makes it more exciting, right?
Team USA is in the same seeding position as Denmark. They're in the 4 seed. They really need to 3-0 if they want to control their own destiny.
Yeah, and that's just how it goes. For fans of the Netherlands, they're still okay.
Yeah, they're still fine.
Right. I mean, they're going to need to pick up a couple of wins over the next 2 matches. They have to back-to-back to put themselves in for sure-ish.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's
100% if they
2
2-0.
teams
100%.
per pod. 100% if they 2-0, 2 teams per pod. I mean, if you'd gone back at the beginning of the tournament, you told anybody, we're just going to drop you into the tournament with 2 rounds to go. If you win them both, you make the top 8 on Sunday.
Everyone would take
Everyone
that.
takes it.
100% of people take that.
Yeah, I think so.
So not too bad for them.
No.
And then for Denmark, of course, they've got their work cut out for them. Still,
They're
2 more
basically in the
matches
same
to go.
situation.
Yeah, but
You know?
they've earned that.
Yeah, by winning here, they basically did all the work that the Dutch had done earlier in the week.
Right. And so for those of you just tuning in as well, we've got 4 pods left, and we just saw 1 match from one of the pods, but it's the same situation in all. Only 2 teams from each pod of 4 get to advance to the top 8 to come back tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be pretty crazy as well, because we'll have the top 8 of the World Magic Cup, and we'll have the World Championship top 4 as well. I have been eagerly awaiting that for a year, so I'm pretty excited for that one. But in the meantime, we get to wind things down here on the World Magic Cup, and we're going to get 2 more matches, you know, ahead of this as well to see who's going to make the cut. And we're going to get into those really exciting kind of elimination rounds too. I mean, that one effectively was in some ways, and the next 2 are going to be for sure.
Those are my favorite to watch.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite to play also.
Yeah, you like the big pressure moments, man?
Love it.
Yeah. What about you, Randy? Are you a big pressure moment guy?
I mean, I'd rather just win all the early ones and not have any pressure. But yeah, I mean, like I said, you get dropped into the tournament and told, win this match to keep going. Absolutely, sign me up.
When you've played as much as we have, you know, the early rounds, and sometimes it can feel a little routine, but playing for top 8 never feels routine. You know when if you lose, you're out, and if you win, you make it. Those situations are always exciting.
Right. And I think that, you know, one of the things that we're going to see here, of course, is the team aspect, right? We're going to be watching players and teams working together to try to get to that point, which adds another exciting layer that you don't normally get when it's all the pressure on yourself.
Yeah, for sure. You don't want to let down your friends. You know, if you're one of those guys that isn't hard on yourself, you know, you still don't want to let down your friends. That's definitely extra pressure. All
right, well, let's head down to the feature match area where we have an interview.
Hi here, I'm Tim Willoughby, down with Thomas and Evelson, down on the feature match floor, and congratulations on that win there. First of, I think you probably need to win out in this section if you want to make it through to the next stage. Is that about right?
Yeah, we had some rough rounds around here, so we need to win them all, I think.
And happy to be back in Constructed now?
I am. I'm not sure all of the team members are, but I actually think we have a pretty good construction for this event.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about your deck choices, because you're on blue-black control that in the main deck is running in relatively few win conditions. Are you worried a little bit about your rounds going to time a little bit when you've got 2 other matches that you need to potentially help out?
I'm sure that my other teammates can handle their games, but I'm not really worried about it because the 4 Ashioks are really hard to deal with individually. So usually you'll get to a point where at least the last one you can somehow protect with a counterspell. so that in the end you'll just deck him. There's not really a standard deck that can deal with that.
And I guess that one thing about having, I would say of the 3 decks that are on your team, yours is likely to be the one that finishes last. How nice is it having a few extra sets of opinions on your decisions as games go late?
I mean, it's obviously great to have decisions helped out by other team members, but especially for a blue-black control deck, usually you have to make a plan far in advance, and it sort of goes in your head, like you're talking in your head about what you want to do. And sometimes talking, even when we're talking in Danish, sometimes it can give away things, and maybe you'll even disagree about things. And especially with blue-black control, you have issues with the time. So sometimes you need to just sort of rush things, and you're already stressed from round 1 of the first game because you have to finish them all 3 in 50 minutes.
So it's pretty much you're just showboating in front of the rest of your team if it comes to it that they have to watch your match finish.
Well, at least holding the cards, you'll have the final say. So in that sense, yeah, at the end of the day, I will make the final decision.
Well, I mean, we have got just a couple of minutes left on this round. I'm going to let your team go off, refresh, get ready for the next round. So you've got 2 big rounds to go if you want to make the next stages in the World Magic Cup.
All right, welcome back to the booth here. That's Randy Buehler, Ben Stark, Marshall Sutcliffe here. And, well, you heard it from them. Denmark looking to move on here. But for now, I think what we should do is send it over to the news desk where Richard Hagen, I'm sure, has a bevy of updates awaiting us.
Just so you know, Marshall, the phrase for bevy is usually beautiful maidens, but I do in fact have updates which will please some and disappoint many others. So how about a bevy of updates for you then? Let's get to the big board, take a look at Pool A for you, and this is Uruguay, England, Brazil and Slovenia. Now Uruguay have been immaculate today so far. They were 3-0 in their pool this morning, but they have just lost a really nerve-wracking one. We'll see if we can get Nate Price in, our roving reporter this afternoon, to tell us a bit more about that one. But Uruguay fall to 0-1. They need 2-1 to advance for certain because they are a top seed. Slovenia, they are winners. Robin Dola and the guys, well done to them. They really needed a good start. They've got one. England, Brazil are still going. When BDM and I talked about the division of the decks in this Team Unified Standard, we noted that the captain of the England team, Fabrizio Anteri, was on blue-black control, and that it might all come down to him. You better believe it's all come down to him. By the time the other 2 matches were finished at 1-1, he was only 1-0 down. But Pearl Lake Ancient and a bunch of heroes' downfalls made it 1-1, and we are now waiting to find out whether the blue-black control deck of Fabrizio Anteri can claim the final victory over Brazil, or whether it will be Willie Adel and Gabriel Fair and the guys who go to 1-0 in that one. Let's take you to Pool B then. This is Israel, Greece, South Korea and Hong Kong. And look at that, another top seed in trouble. Israel have lost their first round. That puts the dream in danger for Shahar Shenhar. We know he's coming back tomorrow anyway for the top 4 of the World Championship. Will he be back for the top 8 of the World Magic Cup? He had that loss to give as a top seed. 2-1 makes it in. That puts South Korea in terrific shape because they beat Hong Kong. Li Shichan, Meng Qizheng are down 0-1, and South Korea now need just 1 win from their remaining 2 matches against Greece and then against Israel. As for Greece, the bottom seed, they were 32nd seed coming in. They were 15th seed coming into the afternoon, but they have won their match. You'll hear more from Team Greece in just a moment. So that's Group B. Let's go to Group C for you now. Mexico, the Slovak Republic, Russia, and the United States. This is a killer group. Let's see what's going on there. Well, we have a win for Team United States. That's Owen Turtenwald, Isaac Sears, Neil Oliver, and the guys there. They've done the business. They're 1-0. The Slovak Republic with Matej Big Z Zatlkai and Even Flock are still going up against the Russian Federation, which means that the #1 seed, this is the curse of the #1s, they've all lost their first round so far. Mexico 0-1. Now they must win their next 2 to be guaranteed. Lots of configurations though if you're on the top of the pile coming in. Marcelino Freeman leads that team. So finally, what about Pool D? Let's take a look at our final pool here and look look at that is the sweep. All 4 #1 seeds coming in this afternoon have lost their opening match and are now up against the wall. That spare loss they could have had, they've all used it up in the first round, which means that Serbia are in pole position at 1-0 and Denmark there are 1-0 with Thomas Enevoldsen defeating, as you saw in the feature match, the Netherlands. So that's where we are. We're going to bring Nate Price in to give us more updates in a little bit. But first, we're going to hand you over to Brian David Marshall, who's with one of the teams that are just doing a tremendous job this weekend. They're into the top 16. They're 1-0. Let's meet Team Greece and Bill Chronopoulos.
Brian David Marshall here with Bill Chronopoulos of the Hellenic national team, the team from Greece. How you doing?
I'm fine.
So you guys came in with some work to do today.
Yes.
You've had to win out and win out.
Actually, not win out because our last spot was due to tiebreakers. We needed 2-1.
Okay.
If no other 2 were 2-1s as well, which happened. So with a 2-1, we proceeded. And yes, we just hope for a good pool. We were confident about our skills. And yesterday we had a bad pool, actually, with fetch lands and useless rares and, well, value, but not the decks that could do well. So we were 1-2, and then won 3 more constructed rounds to finish just at the end of the day at 32nd place. Yes.
Now, I know, I mean, when you talk about nations with a lot of Magic success, Greece has not been one. You've had a couple Pro Tour top 8 competitors, but we you know, not one of the major forces. But I know it's a country that is very passionate about Magic,
yes.
and you guys have been pushing.
We have a very passionate community, very good players, not top players, but if we were given more PTQs or more chances, because due to the geographical place of our country, it's not very easy to travel around, I'm sure that Greek players can do very well.
I remember reading about a rivalry with Cyprus players coming into Greece.
No, they are friends.
To steal the PTQs.
Yeah, they are friends. They are brothers. But yes, if they try to do something, we punch them.
So, I mean, you've had some. I know you have 2 Grand Prix top 16s in your career.
Yes, and lost both the win-and-ins.
Lost your win-and-ins, and you know, very impressive. What I thought was very impressive, 65% match win percentage at the Grand Prix level. But you say it could have been a little better.
Yes, last year I lost. I didn't make any day 2 in 4 Grand Prix that I played. Really lowered my statistics, but it's okay. It happens. Just a bad year. But it seems at the end of the year, it's getting a bit better.
Okay. So what would it mean? What would it mean for your team? Not only to top, team finished 11th last year. You missed out on tiebreakers, for the top 8. What would it mean for the Greek Magic community to see you guys playing on Sunday?
Well, everything. We will show that we have good players as well, and that we are a team, a country, a force that should be respected. And so, apart from qualifying for the Pro Tour as well, which I've never been to, that's a funny fact. Till I was qualified for the Worlds, everybody was telling me I'm the best Greek player, not being yet qualified for a Pro Tour. Well, if you count this as a Pro Tour, I'm not that kind of guy anymore. But still, I need to go to the Pro Tour. I've been qualified 2 times, never managed to go. One due to army duty, one due to not having the money because I top 16 in Grand Prix and I had to pay my trip to the US. So yes, now a top 8 would mean that I will be in a Pro Tour. Finally.
All right, well, I'm wishing you good luck the rest of the way into the rest of the Greek team.
Thank you very much.
Bill Chronopoulos, Brian David Marshall, sending it back to the wall.
Much to Brian David Marshall there, bringing you the scores from Greece. Bill Chronopoulos and the guys, fantastic work making it all the way here. And they are very much in with a shout, especially if they can win their next one. then the third round, we'll see what happens. I have been joined here at the wall by our expert reporter extraordinaire with longer legs than I have to get him round all the tables. Nate Price, welcome along. What can you tell us? I know you've got some sort of flavour for us from a couple of the matches that already are in.
I do, actually. I had a really good time. I'm always drawn at these events to my Uruguayan friends with the wonderful powder blue ties, so I stopped by to take a look at their match. And looking at the matchups beforehand, it actually seemed like it was really, really in Uruguay's favor, especially like one of the ever-present decks in this format right now seem to be the variants on the Whip of Erebos decks.
Sure.
They are very, very powerful. And Uruguay actually had a very interesting way to defeat them by going for an Obzon aggro deck played by Martin Castillo. And you'd think that Anafenza is actually very, very good against both CDC and the Whip. But he actually ended up losing his match to Juric on the Slovenian side, who's playing that CDC Whip deck. The middle match was actually very, very interesting as well. Federico Ribeiro was playing red-white heroic up against Robin Dolar's blue-white control deck. And it's not a particularly good matchup, again, for that blue-white control deck, because the ability to just spit out as many tokens as quickly as it does gives it an opportunity to attack both vertically and horizontally, depending on how things go. It's got a lot of resilience to recover after end hostilities, and turns out that he was able to end up winning for the Uruguayan side, so that gave them a nice even one-to-one match. And there were a ton of people. All of Latin America basically was hovered around that match watching. We had the Guatemalan team off of the one side. There were a couple of Peruvian team members hanging out just beside watching as well. As Sebastian Martinez and his Mardu mid-range deck took on Davor Dachevnik on his also basically another Mardu mid-range deck. His was more centered on tokens. And that fact in itself actually proved incredibly important in this last match. As there was a wonderful, wonderful start by Martinez with an early turn 2 and turn 3 Seeker of the Way.
But, so 2 of those, that's great.
Yeah,
that's
fantastic. But you're outclassed a little bit when you look at a pair of Hordling outbursts, especially when they're followed up by an Elspeth Suns champion and the just ridiculously horizontal attack that the Slovenian brought to play made sure that he was able to swarm around the Uruguayan and took the match so that Slovenia advanced 1-0.
All right, thank you for that, Nate Price. More results coming in. Now, I think I'm hearing that I have the result of the England-Brazil match. Do I have that coming right now? England against Brazil, what do we have there? Give me a result, please. Just hearing now. And we have... yeah, we have that one. England defeat Brazil. Fabrizio Anteri gets the job done with blue-black control. That wasn't a tease, by the way, boys and girls at home. I was waiting for that right along with you, but I heard it was coming. The slip was being handed in. I'm going to hand you back to Brian David Marshall. He is in the comfortable chairs, and he's with someone rather famous who's currently the world #1. So here comes Brian David Marshall with Owen Turtenwald.
Thanks, guys. I'm here with Owen Turnwald, #1 ranked player in the pro rankings right now, and just got your first win in the second round of pod play. You guys advanced to the top 16 on a 2-1 record, so things had to break a little bit right for you there. You're in the bottom of your pod again. Mexico, Russia, the Slovak Republic, the 3 teams you're going to be playing against today. You've already beaten Mexico. How does the rest of this pod look for you? I know you have one bad matchup here.
Yeah, if we get paired against Russia, we're in big trouble. We actually played them on day 1 in Team Constructed, and they just destroyed us. Like, every matchup is just like nightmare, nightmare, nightmare. So we're hoping for double mana screws all around it if we get paired against them.
Right, you said Crackling Doom against your heroic deck.
Yep.
And how do the other matchups look?
There's a blue control deck against the whip deck, which is basically the reason you play blue control, is to get paired against whip decks, and that's in the middle. And on the end is Jeskai tokens against something, but something that we can win, but, you know.
And then the last team's the Slovak Republic, obviously one of the more experienced teams with 2 very well-established pros, but you maybe like your matchups a little better there.
Yeah, it's a tough problem because the remaining teams in the pod are a team of people who have really good decks against us and a team of people who have really good players against us. So there's no good pairings from here on out, it seems.
Okay, but you're up for the challenge. A 2-1 might get in. A 3-0 definitely gets it.
Yeah, if we 3-0, we lock it up. We're playing on Sunday. If we go 2-1, there are lots of combinations in which we do make it or we do not make it because we're at the bottom of the pod. We've been at the bottom of the standings basically all weekend. Yeah. So we're the underdogs in this scenario.
Have you been impressed with your teammates? As you guys have fought back? I mean, three guys with Neil Oliver has some Grand Prix success, but not guys who have the same amount of success you've had. Have you been impressed watching them play?
Oh, I've been thrilled, absolutely thrilled. They're all just excellent players, and I couldn't be more proud of the way that they've both played the cards in their hand and conducted themselves all weekend.
Yeah, I know. I was listening to when you guys were playing in the Team Sealed round on camera. Apparently, Neil Oliver actually had a lot of input into building the double Dune Blast stack in terms of, you were like, no banners, and he was like, no, here's why I think a banner's right. And you were actually able to sort of go, oh, be convinced by him, which is, probably a challenge if you're, with your level of experience versus playing with some players who you're going to be maybe skeptical sometimes of their suggestions.
Yeah.
How are you able to take in that advice from players?
Well, as a general rule, I would just never put a banner in any deck, ever. I've just noticed that people who play banners lose significantly more than people who do not play banners.
Right.
So that's a rule I try to stick by. But as we were building the decks, I mean, it's not often you have 2 Dune Blasts.
Right.
So you both are incentivized to get to 7 mana, and the additional mana fixing is useful. Also, if you happen to flood out, you can be drawing a card and trying to dig into your Dune Blast. So. As a rule, I would never do something like that, but he seemed convinced that it was a good thing to do, and it looked like it would fit well with our cards, so I was willing to accept the input.
Awesome. That's great. Owen, I'm going to let you get back out to the feature match area. You've got 2 more matches to play. I'm Brian David Marshall, Owen Turtenwald, sending it back to Rich at the wall.
All right, thanks very much to Brian David Marshall and, of course, to Owen Turtenwald giving us his time. They're the #1 ranked player in the world right now. More interviews coming right up. We've got Martin Muller of Denmark, the Danish phenom, bringing home the bacon, you might say. Doing very nicely, Denmark, at the moment. They, of course, won in their first round over the Netherlands. So let's bring you up to date. If you're just joining us, welcome. Where have you been all week? This is day 4.5 of the 5. Why don't we stick the pods up behind us, show you what's been going on in Pool 1. Uruguay are at 0-1. That's because Slovenia are 1-0. And now you see it, there it is. England defeat Brazil, Fabrizio Anteri with blue-black control in the marquee matchup at the end of that one. On to Pool B we go. Israel, South Korea, Hong Kong and Greece are in this one. We know the Israelis, all the top seeds lost, remember, this round. So South Korea and Greece, we heard from Bill Chronopoulos just a few minutes ago. South Korea and Greece currently in pole position in that one. Then let's move on to Pool C. Let's take a look what we've got there. And we have Mexico 0-1 because USA, as you can see, are 1-0. And then the Slovak Republic, that has come in. They have defeated the Russian Federation. It looked like Russia were in good shape in that one. Slovak there. And then finally here is Pool D, where you've got the Netherlands having their defeat. Let's take a look at Pool D. If we can, finally, just to set you up for this round, Serbia and Denmark are the winners of that one, and Hungary are up against it, and the Netherlands are up against it. So, a reminder where we are. There are 2 more rounds to play here on day 2, or day 4, if you've been with us all week, of the World Magic Cup. For the #1 and #2 seeds, 2 wins and 1 loss are enough. If you are a 3 or 4, you might get in on 2-1. That's what the United States did in the last set of pools this morning. You might need 3-0. But right now, well, just those 2 rounds to go. We're waiting to hear our feature match for this coming round. I'm looking at the pairings. You've got Uruguay will be facing Brazil. They are both at 0-1, so that is definitely going to be pretty much an elimination match. England play Slovenia, the unlikely one might say, winners of their round 1. They will go against each other in the next round. So that's the pairings for Pool A. The pairings for Pool B look like this. Israel at 0-1, but the #1 seed, remember, up against Hong Kong. They are also 0-1. So again, almost an elimination match. If Israel lost, there's some weird combination where they finish 1 and 2 along with everyone else, and the bottom seed is a 3 and 0. Then they would make it in as the best 1 and 2. But nonetheless, massive 0-1 matchup, Israel against Hong Kong. The winners in that group also go head-to-head. That's South Korea and Greece, the 2 seed versus the 4. That is Pool B. Why don't we take a look at Pool C then? These are the pairings for them. We have Mexico, who are 0 and 1, against the Russian Federation, who are 0 and 1. It seems like all the losers paired together. It's like a Swiss tournament, this. All the winners paired together, because what a clash we have in Pool C, my word. The Slovak Republic, Ivan Flok, Matej Zatlkai, Mikhail Guldan, and Jan Tomchany, they are up against Team USA this round. If the Slovak Republic wins as a number 2 seed, they are in. Even if they lose, they can win their last match of the round against Mexico, and that would see the Slovak Republic, one of the big favourites for the tournament, through. So USA cannot knock the Slovak Republic out of this tournament, as they did Chinese Taipei with the bonfire earlier this morning. But if USA win from their 4th seed at 2 and 0, that might be enough. They might need their final round win over Russia, the Cold War classic. We'll see what happens with that one. And then into Pool D we go. What do we have there? Well, we have the Netherlands, and they are up against Hungary. Again, the 0-1s have been paired against each other in this middle round of pool play. Netherlands against Hungary, and then Serbia will face Denmark. So that's what we're looking at as we look at these 4 sets of pairings going into the middle round of pool play. Now, you at home know that only 16 teams can still win this tournament. Who's going to do it? Join us at the hashtag WMTGWMC. Name your final 8. Put them on there. I'm going to send you down to the booth, because we are just about ready for this second and penultimate round of pool play here on day 2 at the World Magic Cup.